We're back at series 9 of the Dig podcast, and this is a very exciting series because the business clinic is back, and we bring the business clinic to you once in a while when we feel we really need that actionable advice from experts in lots of different fields. It's brought to you in partnership with Timely Careers, who are right behind us in that mission of bringing advice to people that they can actually put into practice and make changes in their lives and in their working lives as well. You can expect information on managing your finances, managing your relationships, so important, grabbing opportunity. We need to grab opportunity. There's no point in letting it pass us by. We'll only regret it. And also PR for your business. What is that and how do we make the most of it? So it's a really exciting podcast with some brilliant guests who want to help me and want to help you. So buckle up and get ready for the business clinic in partnership with Timely Careers.
Good morning. I'm saying good morning to everyone on the Dig podcast because it's a very early morning here. I am live to Australia. Imagine like the power of our technology, the amazingness of being able to do a Zoom interview to Australia with one of the top earning coaches in the world. Shani Taylor is a business coach, and she has shared the stage with A-listers such as Elizabeth Hurley and Tommy Hilfiger. She coaches people all over the world, and as I said, is ranking in the top 4% in earnings for coaches. So I recently met Shani at the Women Changing the World Summit and Awards, and she won that day, and I can see why. She won Coach of the Year, and it was presented by the Duchess of York. So it was a really special event, and I felt very honoured to be there and to hear Shani firsthand on the stage, and that's what really captivated me. That her personality and her advice just really stopped me in my tracks, and I thought, right, I wonder would she ever be on the Dig podcast. So I plucked up the courage to ask her, and she's here today. But her story is powerful. It's scary. It's a scary story. It's an emotional story, but it's so inspiring. And I know it's going to inspire everybody on the Dig podcast today. And she said something at the event that really compelled me to have her here, and it was that action changes the world. And like I always say, that we can listen to inspiring speakers all day long, and we can listen to all the podcasts we want, and we can go on all the training, but if we don't take action, it's actually a waste of time. So that, I thought, was definitely another reason why she needed to be here. Good morning, good afternoon to you, Shani. Welcome to the Dig podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm honoured you said yes. And on the day we had the best of crack because you're probably the tallest person I've ever interviewed, and I was the shortest person that ever interviewed you. But we had great fun, and I asked you to come on and you said yes. So I don't take that for granted because I know you're so busy. Shani, I did do an interview, a bio there for you, but it's great to hear it from people. That's just a wee short I suppose, intro in my words, but do you want to introduce yourself and sort of take us back to the start of how you got to be here?
It's so funny because every human being actually loves to talk about themselves, but the minute that they get asked to specifically talk about themselves, they clam up and they don't really want to talk about themselves. So,
don't do that. Don't do that today. No.
You did a great job with the bio, and I am in the top 4% of earners in the coaching industry, which is actually a really big deal because the coaching industry is full of people with amazing services and incredible gifts to share with the world, but majority of them never fully realize it as a business. And the problem is that they have this incredible service, and so they go into business to do the service, but they forget that they've actually got to build a business. And so this is why so many of them fall down and never have the success that they want, because they're good at their craft, but they're not great at business. And for me, like literally 5 years ago, I had nothing. I was renting a derelict, rundown, property. That the outlook was a set of derelict shops that had been a construction site for 10 years. I was living week to week. I was studying a postgrad law degree full time, so that was about 50 hours a week, and I was also a single mum. And the reason that I was studying the postgrad law degree was because in 2011 I had been held in a house for 2 days and repeatedly sexually assaulted by a family member, which left me with post-traumatic stress disorder so bad that I couldn't even leave the house at one point. And I think that really drove me then to try and understand the legal system. And at one point I thought I was going to save the world and the victims of crime. And so I kind of went down that path, but I kind of realized halfway through my law degree that I didn't want to be a lawyer. So I was really trying to figure out what to do next, because you know, I didn't have a job, had no money, and I knew that I was meant for more, but I didn't know what that more was. And so I, in the search for answers, I attended this day-long coaching program in person at the time, because this was before the world went into lockdown. And it was really one of my first ever experiences being coached. And it was clearly profound and impactful. She gave us some amazing information about, you know, money and the energetics of money and self-worth. And this was a big deal for me, because I had come from, you know, I was born into poverty. To give your listeners a bit of context, the suburb in Sydney that I was born in had the highest rate of homicide out of all of Sydney. And I actually saw yesterday in my Instagram feed, it still does. So it's, you know, it's not a great suburb to be born into. And so I had no idea how to manage money, and I had no idea about valuing myself enough to even build wealth. And so this program that I attended was amazing, because it gave me kind of the first introduction to money. But something she did on the day was super powerful, which was she gave us a vision exercise, and she had us write down, where do you want to be? What's your ideal lifestyle in 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and beyond? And I wrote down this big list of things that I wanted, which at the time seemed really freaking audacious, because I had nothing. And I wrote on this list things like, I want a 7-figure business, and I want to teach and mentor people, even though I had no idea what I wanted to teach and mentor about. I want to have a place overlooking the water. I want to travel the world for business. And you may remember, Caroline, I also put on that list, I wanted to speak at an event in London. Do you remember that I shared that?
Of course, yeah.
Right. And I'd never traveled outside of Australia at this time. So even that in itself was like, what am I doing writing down an event in London? Fast forward to just under 5 years ago now, and I've done everything on that list. I have a 7-figure business. I've done, you know, I've done over 7 trips this year internationally for business. I live in a house, in my dream house, that overlooks the Sydney Harbour Bridge with water. I teach and mentor clients in 20 countries around the world. And as you know, I just got back from London, where I spoke at the Women Changing the World Awards and won Coach of the Year. So that's where I've come from. I feel like I've talked a lot now.
No, you haven't. And you also told a really powerful thing, that you battled with addiction as well through all of that. And that's very publicly written on your website. Do you want to just talk to us about what you were in that cycle?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously being born into low socioeconomic suburb environment family, you're going to be a product of your environment. Most people are. And so, you know, I had a pretty turbulent upbringing. I had a very turbulent childhood. And when I was 16, I got kicked out of home, and I ended up living on the streets, and I picked up an intravenous drug addiction. And so, you know, I would put needles in my arm. So that went on until I became a single mum at 23. And my son really was and continues to be a driving force for why I've wanted to turn my life around from where I've come from. But just as I was kind of starting to build some normality and some safety, that's when the event in 2011 happened. And so again, it was like PTSD and dealing with that trauma. But that traumatic experience was without a doubt also the catalyst for change, because you literally get to rock bottom, and you get to a point in your life where it's do or die. And I wasn't going to die. So I had to do, which kind of brings us to action.
It does. And, there's people, like, it always fascinates me, the story behind everyone, like behind everyone's eyes, there's this story. Sometimes it's heartache and trauma and all of that. And I think everyone that listens to the podcast has a story, and everyone. And when people hear you share that, like those huge things that have happened in your life, and now you're able to be happy and be successful in your own right, then that gives great encouragement to people. So I know people will be sitting at home with their challenges and thinking, well, if she can get over that, I can get through this. So there's great hope in that story already. But so what happened at that coaching? Like, what was that weekend you went to? What was the most powerful thing that happened there? Because we do hear about people going to these life-changing events, and something happens where it just clicks. What was this key turning moment at that weekend that made you actually things start to change for you?
So I think there was two factors. I think number one, just being sat down and being asked to be intentional about what is your vision for the future. And even though I wrote a list of things that I looked at that, and there was definitely a part within me that went, there's no way I'm going to be able to create this stuff. But it came out of me and it poured out of me. So that's what it was. But without a doubt, it was one of my first experiences being coached as a client, as a consumer of coaching. And it really just opened something up for me where I was like, oh my God. Mentorship is such a mirror into our own soul. And mentorship is just the vehicle for you unlocking within you what's already in there. And I think that's what she did. And I think that's why I'm so inspired by mentorship. And it's a key factor to having a successful life and a successful business. Because for me, if you want to have success, investing in yourself and your growth consistently all the time, not sometimes, not when it's easy, all the time, that is the bare minimum requirement to success. Because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know that you don't know it. And we always need a guide that is a couple of steps ahead to literally light the path, because I believe we have everything we need within us and we have the map, but we're in the dark, the lights are out, and the mentor has the torch.
And any advice about how to find that mentor? How do we know who that person is that has the torch?
It's a really great question, because if your listeners have done any type of coaching, they've probably experienced at some point, there is so much bad mouthing about the coaching industry, and there's so much bad mouthing like, oh, I took a program and it didn't get me anywhere, and all of this sort of stuff. And so I'm going to say, let's do a trigger warning, even though I didn't do the trigger warning when I spoke about, being sexually assaulted. I think we need to do a trigger warning for this, which is, there's two things around that. First of all, when I attended that program 5 years ago and I wrote my audacious list, I left at the end of the day, and obviously I woke up the next day and I didn't have a 7-figure business, and I didn't have a house by the water, and I didn't have clients in 20 countries around the world, and I didn't even have those things 6 months later. So if I had gone and said that coaching program didn't work because I don't have my 7-figure business and la, 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 I'm actually the idiot, because I don't understand how coaching works, and I had short space and time horizons. Coaching compounds. And a lot of what we get from our mentor, we sign up with these expectations on ourselves and the mentor on what we're supposed to get. But the truth is, it ripples out and it compounds over the years. When I look back now, I can credit some of my success to that mentor. But 6 months after the program, I wouldn't have been able to credit that success because I couldn't see the things in my tangible reality. So a lot of the time we're not getting the results because we're not seeing what we've actually gotten from the program. That's the first thing. But then the other thing that I will say, which is the trigger warning, every relationship you are having outside of yourself is just a reflection of the beliefs and that you have of you and the action that you're prepared to take. Now, I'm not saying that there's not some terrible coaches out there, but you invested in them. You chose that person. And so if you didn't have the wisdom to see that they were a shonky coach, I'd be more interested in going inward and asking myself, What do I need to find within me to make a better decision next time? Because it's not their fault. I took the action. I'm the responsible adult. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And I suppose, is there any advice around seeking that person out? Like, where do we find? Is it online? Is it other people's recommendations? Is it networking? How would you recommend people find that mentor or find a space where they are?
So first of all, if they want a business mentor, we know where they need to go.
Absolutely. We're talking to us. Yes.
Well, they need to come and find me. But more broadly, every time I engage a mentor, I always go and ask my network. And especially the higher up you are as a leader, you need to go and ask your colleagues at your level, like, who are they using? So referrals become really important. But also social media is a great place, because what I would say is, whether you find somebody by a referral or you just see somebody in your newsfeed on Facebook or LinkedIn, the number one thing I want you to look for is, when they post content, look at what other people are writing on their content. So what I mean by that is, if people are posting content, if coaches are posting content, and you look at the comments, and there are no comments or very few comments from their current clients, that's a red flag. Because your hottest audience, your most engaged audience as a coach, are your clients. And so when you're sharing content, your clients are going to be the first ones to celebrate and say, oh my God, that's an incredible share, because they're already engaged. So if you're going and working with mentors that don't have an engaged audience that you can see, that's a massive red flag, because a great coach will have a great community.
That's great advice, and one that I would never really have thought of. So the best place I know for your content is on Facebook, you were saying, and we'll link how to find you in the show notes. But in general, there's thousands of coaches all over the world doing great things, and that's a great way to try and pinpoint if there is a synergy, or if you could see that there's a positivity underneath their posts and their clients. So that's really good advice. And a mentor can be someone that actually you're not even paying as well, like, isn't it? It can be someone just, yeah. Tell us about that.
I wanted to take a short break in the Dig podcast to talk about our partner for the business clinic, a really important partner who can help people in the world of work. Timely Careers can help you, and this is how. Having a dynamic team just makes perfect business sense. And flexible working no longer just means reduced hours or working from home. It means so much more than that. It can mean a compressed schedule, a 9-day fortnight, term time working, hybrid working, and so much more. Offering these flexible options makes your business look like a forward-thinking and an attractive place to work. Timely Careers works very closely and collaborates with over 1,400 highly ambitious, motivated women who are looking for flexible working options. So if you want to find out more, connect with timelycareers.com.
The other thing is that I would definitely go and attend as much of their free stuff as possible. And, I have a lot of people that I hold regular monthly free events, and I have people that come to my free events for months before they actually pay to come and work with me. And I encourage it. I say at the end of my events, if you're here free, don't think you can't come back to the next free thing. Get yourself in my space as much as possible. So yeah, I think the other thing is, you don't need to pay to have mentorship. If it 5 years ago, I didn't have money. So I went to as many things as I could that I didn't have to invest a lot of money in. I read as many books as possible. And I saved up for the programs or the coaches that, were really the big ticket items, but I didn't let that stop me from doing micro things now. And, the other thing is mentors, like I think what you're alluding to, mentors can be, like, if you're working a 9 to 5, there's mentors inside of your office space that you can draw on. Mentors can be people, colleagues, friends that have the results of the thing that you're trying to achieve, whether it's a relationship or your business. So if you feel like you don't have the money right now, there's always other options. You have to get creative.
You absolutely do. And take action, right? So action changes the world. Talk to me about that statement.
Yeah. So that was kind of the statement that I finished off my speech with at the awards. And we have a hashtag and a saying in my community, which is feelings are fleeting, anchor in action. And I don't want to disregard anybody's feelings. I'm not saying that you don't acknowledge your feelings. It's important to have compassion for how you and others are feeling. But the problem is people's businesses don't grow because they're reacting to how they feel today rather than really anchoring in the action that needs to be taken. And so the work for any of us in business is about making the action and making our commitment be bigger than our feelings or bigger than our excuses. So you're going to feel terrible majority of the days in the year if you're in business. That's the journey, is it not? Like,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And so we have this fantasy where we think we're supposed to feel good. And when we don't feel good 95% of the year, we then think that there's something wrong and we have to go and tend to our feelings. And I can't show up and do good work unless I'm in the feeling. And, that couldn't be any further from the truth, because if you take action, a lot of the time you create the good feelings because you're in your body, you're moving, you're taking action. It gives you a sense of safety and security. So nothing is going to happen without action.
Absolutely. And you said at the event, there's shoulda, woulda, couldas, and then there's the action takers. And I did get a lot of actually feedback about that, like saying, oh, that's so me. I'm always saying like I should have done that, or if I had done that. And so that really resonated with a lot of people that follow on Dig Podcast and Dig for Success. So right, we need to take action. So I had said to you before we came on the podcast, because I always love actionable advice, could we cover perhaps 5 things that can help people change the way they're doing things in the world of work? Because there's people who are business owners listening to this, entrepreneurs, but there's also people who work for people, which is a huge part of working life. Like a lot of people work for people and are also wanting to be better and stronger and actionable. So can we start at the start maybe and take us through a few steps?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm also cracking up because I'm listening to the speed at which you talk, and I know I talk fast, and I'm like, the people on this podcast are going to have to press the slow down mode. Most people speed things up, but they're going to have to slow it down with us, Caroline.
And do you know what? I'm very intentional to try and be better. So that's so funny that you think that I still talk fast, because 110 episodes later, I feel I'm on slow-mo compared to the way I was at the start. So I really actually tried really hard, but I suppose it's the Irish accent. We do tend to, I think it is, if I grew up with 5 boys, and if I didn't talk fast and get it out, I was never going to be allowed to speak. So I think I'm traumatized from that. But anyway, yeah, they may have to listen to us on slow-mo because you're a fast talker as well. But start take us through, Shani.
So definitely the first one for me is about anchoring in action, but specifically all it takes is a daily micro step. So I really see that people get into this analysis paralysis because they look at the big picture. And of course, the big picture in the future, it looks really hard to achieve. And so that's what stops us. But if you just pick your micro step, so it's important to hold a vision, but you also need to bring it into your tangible reality. And that's only going to be done through action. And one of my mentors that I've had over the years, actually, he said that what he saw in me as being a key to success that most people don't have is that I'm able to see the big vision, i.e. the 7-figure business, the house by the water, the clients in 20 countries 5 years ago that I dreamed on a list. But then I also am able to get into the action steps that are required today and just focus on that. So I think it's about anchoring in action, but with a micro step and just focusing on the micro step today. That's number one.
Okay, cool. Micro steps. So I think people like you said, get so overwhelmed by thinking of what they want to achieve. They're never going to get there. So they just give up. But if you just take those small little steps today, do one thing, maybe one thing.
Do one thing and just like let that be the light for today that you get done, right? And it'll build.
Okay.
The second thing that I would say is be really unapologetic about what you value and prioritize that. So as an example, I live, breathe, eat, and if we could swear on this podcast, I would say SHIT. I live, breathe.
Oh my God, we swear on this podcast all the time.
Okay, great. I'm a swear. I live, breathe, eat, and shit my business, right? I really do. And for somebody who doesn't have a high value or as high of a value as me on business, they will say that I'm dysregulated and that I'm hustling. For the person that has the same value on business as me, they will admire me for my commitment and my action taking. And so when I say be unapologetic, you are going to get both praise and criticism. You are going to get people that disagree with how you live your life, and they're going to be very vocal about it. And especially the bigger your business or your career gets, the more visibility you have, the more criticism you're going to get. And so being unapologetic about your values and prioritizing what you want to do above all else. I let nothing and no one get in my way. And even when I've maybe had some personal stuff happen, I'm like the night before, right? At the afternoon, something might happen in my personal life. I'm like, okay, great, but I'm going to be asleep by 9:30. This is my sleep and it has to be prioritized because that's what I need in order to perform in business tomorrow. So you like a lot of the time we're people pleasing and injecting the expectations of what everybody else around us wants, but you're not doing anyone any favors by not being authentic to what your values are.
Especially here in Ireland and the UK, there is that culture of don't get too high and mighty because people don't like that. So I'm just going to stay in my corner doing what I do. And that is something that we do battle with over here. You're afraid to be too successful or show that you're successful or show that you're so hardworking. So that will help a lot of people to not let that hold you, because that will hold you back.
Yeah, and like in Australia, we have this thing called tall poppy syndrome, which is what you just described. And it's like, have you heard of the crab in the bucket analogy?
No.
So basically what happens is if you put a whole bunch of crabs in a bucket, they're quite smart. They will start to stack on top of each other to climb out, to get over the lid of the bucket. But then the minute that the crab at the lip of the bucket is about to climb over, the rest of the crabs pull it back down because they realize that they can't get out without that crab. And so, yeah, so this is a real thing. And so whether you're in Australia or Ireland, you're going to have your version of crab in the bucket where you're scared to try and get out because people just, it's like, the movie, every time I'm nearly out, they pull me back in, right? But, you're going to have to you're really going to have to double down on your values and prioritize what you want to do, because otherwise you're going to get to the end of your life and you're going to regret that you didn't do more and have more of what you want because you lived inside of the expectations of somebody else. So I would rather have the haters and the people criticizing me, but go to bed at night feeling fulfilled because I did what I wanted to do.
I know. And we're saying this all in a podcast that is an hour, and that takes work on yourself. And hence that's why people go to coaching, because actually people's opinions have consumed me all my life. And it's something I do work hard on, but it takes work every day. Like I'm always wondering, oh, what are they going to say? And are they talking about me? And then I'm like, no, Caroline, come on, you're doing this for your family and yourself. So I have to talk to myself every day and coach myself. But so it does take work. It's not something that's just going to happen like that because we've been ingrained, I suppose, in our society to be that way. So yes, this is something that a coach perhaps could help you with, or you can start to be more aware about. That's great advice. So that's number 2. Can you take us to your next step?
Taking a break in the middle of the podcast just for a little second to ask for your help. Over the past 9 series, I've been overwhelmed by your support. There's so many of you listening, thousands and thousands every month listening to the actionable advice, but still some people haven't subscribed or followed on the channel that they're listening. So if you're listening to this and you think that's me, I haven't done that, it would be brilliant if you could just take a second and hit follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or if you hit the subscribe button on YouTube. It means that the Dig podcast can keep growing and can keep getting great guests on that can actually help change our lives. Thank you, and let's get back to the business clinic.
I would say that the third thing that I've done really well and that I see as a common trait across successful people is that we master the mundane. And this is where people start to go, oh, and get really bored. But what I mean by that is you have to choose the main thing that you want to be known for, and then you have to select all of the activities that are going to move the needle to create that. And then you have to do those activities every single day. So for most people in business, those activities look like marketing, selling, and serving. If you're not marketing your services, you may as well be a billboard in the desert. Nobody's going to see you. Nobody's going to buy from you. If you're not selling and you don't love to sell, then number one, you need to come and work with me to get over that. But number two, you have to be selling, because otherwise you're not going to have clients to serve consistently. And number three, you then have to really be so meticulous at getting better and better with how you serve your clients, because the better you are, and it's always an evolution, but the better you are at serving people, the more your business is going to blow up, because more it just creates an energy and people start to come in and want to work with you. The problem is most people find it really difficult to do the same things over and over and over again every single day. They get bored and they want action and distraction, and they want immediate gratification. And if they can't see that if I do step A, if I don't get B, so as an example, it's this consumer mindset, right? We want to buy the book, we want to pay the $30, and then we want to have the book in our hands immediately, and that gives us our gratification. But in business, you need to put $30 in and then wait and wait and wait and wait until it compounds and you start to see a result. And so most people can't do that, and that's why they don't last, or they don't become the success that they were born to become. You've got to master the mundane, and it means doing the same thing over and over again every single day.
I think that's probably more a problem these days, because we do get things so instantly now with the way the world is and technology and stuff. So people, I remember meeting someone and they just started their new business and they're like, it's so hard, isn't it? It's so hard. I think they were only started 4 or 5 months, and I was like, yeah, so flipping hard. And because I had a shop for 12 years, so I think I was 7 years in, and they were like, oh, so, and I was thinking, it's only 4 months. It's going to be hard for a very long time here. Do they not realize that? So I think we maybe think we should get things quicker, more success. So I suppose that's great for people listening, because if they aren't reaching those successes yet, you have to keep going, right?
That's right. Exactly. Being in business, I have a child, and I still to this day will say that being in business is harder than having a child. It is one of the most confronting experiences you will ever go through in your life, because it requires you to look at you every single day, and it highlights all of your bad shit as well as all of the things you're great at. And it also requires you to change how you view life. And so it is a roller coaster, and only the fittest survive.
I know. I interviewed a guy from Ireland, Shani, who now owns a bar in New York, and it's one of the greatest bar in the world. It's been awarded us, and he's an amazing guy, Jack McGarry, and he says it takes a crazy kind of, what was it? A crazy kind of, something kind of crazy person to be in business. And I think that's why, because you do have all those reflections on yourself every day of the amazing and the highs and the lows and all. So it's a crazy kind of, I want to go back over his quote, but that reminds me of something that he said once: not everyone does it, because you're kind of crazy when you do, because of how hard it is. Okay, that's great. Another great tip. Keep going.
So number 4, what I would say is you need to blend what I call spirit and matter. Another way to say that is the energetics and the action taking. So to give you an example, if you look at the coaching industry, no matter what type of coach, whether it's relationship coach, health coach, business coach, most coaches do one or the other. They either teach you the energetics or they teach you the strategy, but they don't give you both. And this is a real downfall, because if you are too spiritual and too focused on the energetics, you will end up with what we call having your head in the clouds, because you'll be dreaming and planning and daydreaming all day long. But then you're not going to do anything to bring those visions and those dreams into reality. But equally, if you're too action focused, if you're too strategy focused, if you only go and keep learning strategy and tactic, you become really dense, because then you're not thinking about the future. You don't have vision, you don't have dreams, you don't have feelings. So, you know, when it comes to kind of searching for a mentor as well, what I would say is you will have a tendency to go for the type of coach or the type of person that aligns with what your type of personality. So if you're a right brainer, you're feeling based, and you've probably done a whole bunch of stuff around the energetics of relationships or business, but you don't have enough strategy. And if you're a left brainer, you're an accountant, you're a finance person, you're a thinker, you're an analytic person, you probably keep going and learning strategy, but where your biggest growth is going to be is by going and learning some energetics as well. But, you know, to kind of bring it all together from a daily perspective, we have to have a balance of spirit and matter, energy and action, because too much of one, you're going to be out of balance. So we need both.
And that's hard, because the emotional side of things, like you said, and that would definitely both have affected me. Whereas sometimes people say to me, oh, you make me dizzy watching you. You're always going, doing. And then sometimes I stop and go, why am I doing all this? What am I at? I'm crazy. And then I'm like, no, I'm doing it because, so you're right. You have to always bring yourself back to your reasons why, I suppose. And we could run around taking action all the time, but we could just be busy fools if we don't have our goals or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we need both, and we need to have mentors that teach us both, because too much of one, you're going to put the other one out of balance.
Absolutely. Okay. Keep going.
Yeah. And then lucky last, number 5, I have to say is mentoring. I mean, I am the woman and the business person that I am today because of my mentors. You know, when you think about coming from low socioeconomic, coming from drug addiction, coming from trauma, you know, you don't get taught skills at home or at school on how to evolve past these things. And you don't know the strategies that you need in your business for your next level. So without a doubt, coaching compounds, and investing in yourself consistently. I'm never without a mentor, never.
Sorry to jump in, lots of different mentors doing different things. Is that a thing?
Yeah, 100%. So I always have a business mentor, and I always have what I would call an emotional or mindset coach, because for me, those two things are the absolute necessity to growing me and growing my business. And so I have to be working on how I'm viewing, what my mind is thinking, how I'm feeling, and I have to be working on my business strategy always, the bare minimum.
Wow. Things have changed so much. Like years ago, this wasn't as much of a thing. Sure, it wasn't. Like, I mean, I know if I was talking to I would always see my daddy as a mentor in life, I suppose, and business. But if I was saying to him I was going to a coach, he would say, what kind of nonsense is that? Or what, I think it's like an old school idea. But actually, I do believe being in the world of work and being in business, I don't know what you think, is a lot harder these days than it's ever been, because of the noise, because of the need to be all these things. Like years ago, you didn't need to be the marketeer to be online and be visible. That was not a thing. So there's more expected of us, I think, in the world of work now. So we do need help, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, without a doubt.
So those are 5 great tips. You also said a few things that I wanted to touch on. I know we've just got another few minutes here because you're flat out as always. But you said a thing about giving up people and places and situations that don't align with you. Do you want to just touch on that?
Yeah, so maybe we'll put a trigger warning on this as well. But because again, as human beings, we are wired to seek safety and security, and we find safety and security in numbers, in groups, in packs where we think we belong. And so that can look like different social settings, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your family, immediate or otherwise, whether it's your friendship circle, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's your clients. But you have to really be consistently doing an audit on whether or not the people, the places, and the situations that you find yourself in are aligned, not with who you are today, not with the results that you have today, but with who you're trying to become and the results that you're trying to create. And so if people, places, and situations don't align and feed you with what you need for your future self, then you have to get rid of them, because otherwise, like the crab in the bucket, you're going to stay stuck exactly where you are, doing the same things with the same people, having the same conversations, creating the same results where you hit income ceilings because you're not expanding above who you are today. And then you're going to get to the end of your life and you're going to wish that you did something different.
And how do you know when they're not aligning?
You know, if you know, because it doesn't feel good. There's an inner knowing. So for the feelers, they will know, because they'll be like, this doesn't feel good, but I'm going to keep people pleasing. I'm going to keep subordinating. Or for the thinkers, and they will analyze that situation and go, well, this person is only, making $120,000 a year, and I'm trying to, build wealth of $1 million a year, and their thoughts and their feelings that they're sharing with me are keeping me stuck in the same conversation about $120,000 a year income instead of growing me.
Okay, so you'll know.
You'll know. The problem is we won't want to own it, especially if it's family or friends. People have a real challenge with removing family and friends. And you just have to decide what that looks like. Maybe you don't want to be cutthroat. Maybe you don't want to say, hey, I never want to speak to you again. But you need to, like what we've said here about being really unapologetic about what you value and really intentional with your time. And sometimes that means seeing less of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big topic, but one I think everyone needs to be aware of. You also said a thing about getting uncomfortable, putting yourself in places where you feel like you don't belong. That's a huge thing. Talk to us about that.
Well, I think if you have a look at the course of my life, there is no way that I would be a 7-figure business owner with clients in 20 countries around the world, looking at the Harbour Bridge, if I only ever put myself in situations where, or with people that I felt comfortable with, because the rooms that I was in, the people that I was spending my time with, I would still be a drug addict, or I would still be, living week to week. So I've always looked for people and rooms and conversations that I had no place being a part of, because I don't have those things, because that then elevates me up to that level. And so it's like, whenever you feel like you don't belong somewhere and you're looking at a community, or you're looking at a mentor, or you're looking at a person thinking, well, they're far above me, that's where you need to lean into. Because if you want to rise up, it's like shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you're going to reach the stars.
It's so true. And that's a big thing. People talk about, that statement, which I hate, but it's said all the time, imposter syndrome. But I love the way you're putting it, as in, if you feel uncomfortable being somewhere, it's probably exactly where you're meant to be in some cases.
Yeah, 100%.
So much actionable advice. This podcast is going to be put out as part of a business clinic. So a series where we speak to people who can, it's like a clinic where people come for help, which is definitely what you have given them today. Have you any closing words for people who are listening, who are perhaps going through challenges in work and life, and maybe feel like they can't see a light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, I think it's wise to remember that the challenges that you're experiencing and the things that you think about yourself, what actually causes the suffering is that you're trying to stop feeling or thinking that way. And the truth is, we're always going to feel not good enough, not worthy enough, not doing enough, not having enough. Those experiences are never going away. That is the human condition. So instead of waiting for some mystical, magical moment where you feel good enough and feel worthy, your work is to make a home for those experiences and bring them along for the ride, because they're not going anywhere. And when you feel terrible and you feel bad about yourself, instead of trying to get rid of it, accept and acknowledge that that's how you're going to feel, and take action anyway.
I love that. That's brilliant. That's it, because it's not going away, or it's part of who we are, right? Everything that's happened and how we feel is part of who we are. So we just need to learn ways of bringing it along with us for the ride, as you say. So
Exactly.
true, so true. Because you can beat yourself up and why am I this way? Well, you are, and what are you going to do about it? You shoulda, woulda, coulda, or yeah, an action taker, right?
Exactly.
I love it. Okay, so we're going to put it all in the show notes, Shani, for people who perhaps are out walking or running or in their car and can't write down. But where can people find you now to continue following you on your journey?
So the best place is to find me on Facebook, my personal profile, not my business page. That's where I have hung out for the last 4 years. That's where all the action is. And I share content every single day with business tips, mindset tips, personal growth tips. So there's a lot of value to have my face in your feed every single day, because I share amazing content that's just going to really help uplift and inspire you and give you clarity. So Facebook is the place to go.
Absolutely. And your website is there as well. And we'll link that in the show notes for people who want to connect and get your services as well. I want to thank you. I put myself in a room where I didn't feel comfortable fully, as in worthy, at the Women Changing the World. And the minute the first person took to the stage, I suppose it was the caliber of the way that speakers were chosen, as in the most amazing women who were sharing normal stories of trials and tribulations, but also celebrating their successes. And I felt comfortable very quickly then, because I think it was just the way everyone made everyone feel like we're all on this journey together. So I would definitely say, if I hadn't pushed myself out to be there, I would never have met you. You would never be sharing your story on the Dig podcast, and it was all meant to be. So that's my kind of advice to everybody who's listening as well. Do that one thing perhaps today where you do feel uncomfortable, because look what could happen. You could be going live to Australia with someone amazing like Shani. So thank you. Thank you for being on the Dig podcast. I can't wait till the next time you're back in Ireland or the UK, and maybe we can meet up in person, and maybe someday I'll be in Australia and we can look out over that harbour bridge together, right?
Most definitely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much.